Hi, Ruth.
Hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful. How are you today?
I'm doing great.
Nice to meet
Good.
you.
Good to meet you.
So, before we get into your life as a mindfulness ninja, I want to know, how did you survive COVID? How did you get through that 3 years now that the world's waking up? And how has it changed the way that you do things now? This must be good. I'm getting a feeling it's going to be a good
Um,
answer.
I know some people have the thought that we're all having collective trauma, and I don't want to downplay the trauma
Sure.
anyone else had and the great difficulties they had, but I had such a good year. I had such a good year. I don't want to rub it in anyone's face. I had a
Sure.
great year. I just moved in with my husband, my true love. He's wonderful. And it's interesting. He is a jazz musician,
Oh, cool.
and he got to stop doing late night bar gigs with some pals that want to do some pop stuff. He got to do a lot more composition. He got to do long range composition. He was part of Deep Tones for Peace. I'm a therapist, so I just went to telehealth, and I
Yeah.
still do telehealth like this. I do therapy this way. And some people had a really hard time, but some people found it enlightening in a lot of ways. Some
Yeah.
people, it forced them to slow down and take stock and check their priorities and delve into spirituality or gratitude. So I know there's some negatives, but there were some positives too.
I think so. I think there's a level right now when you do say that there was silver linings, there's like almost like a buyer's remorse, because no one's downplaying the fact that it was a
Yeah.
pandemic, but at the same time, everybody had a choice on how you were going to deal with this time period. So
Yeah.
at the end of the day, all you're doing is heralding what your choice was, and that's totally fine. Just to clear up a little confusion, I know it's confusing on the platform we're on, but I have both the jazz and I do my other segment, which is famous interviews, which is the logo back here. So just so you know, but it's always intriguing because people are like, hold on, I'm not in jazz. So what do you want? But it's I kind of the zygote split with me. Like once I got into Pod Match, it turned
Mhm.
into a segment with everybody. But I've done jazz radio since 2011, so it's I
Well, I
love
was
it.
listening to the Chaz podcast, and I'm like, I read that you want these other things, and I'm like, well, I don't have a big jazz story. You want to interview my husband? He's fantastic.
I'm waiting for I'm waiting for someone to just come up with a fictional jazz story for me that is so magnanimous we can write a script and make a movie out of it.
Although listening to the jazz podcast, honestly, I started to think about the way that I do mindfulness for therapy. I could describe what that is. And I started thinking about the role that music has in healing
Hmm.
and not healing. A lot of people that are really deep into the art talk about how healing it is, but I also hear music. Music brings out, I happen to be a musician. And it brings out emotion in people, in the artists, and sometimes the emotion can be really, really dark.
Yeah.
And I think there's a positive aspect to it, but it could be negative or positive. And so it really got me thinking about, wow, people that connect heavily to music, this might be a really good way, a blend of using mindfulness for healing instead of mindfulness. Okay, that my whole shtick is that mindfulness, as wonderful as it is in many, many ways, all the research is behind it, I'm a big fan, but it can be used to avoid,
Yeah.
and it can be used as a suppression technique. Oh my gosh, I feel bad, the beach, the waves, I have to do that. And so what I do is teach people how to use it to go into the feeling to heal. And so I was thinking, well, music brings up the feeling. When I was young and didn't know how to deal with feelings, if I was having a really hard time, I was playing Beethoven. Like
Yeah.
Beethoven's my angry music. And so I'm like, wow, if that facilitates expression, then the mindfulness could then be used to go in and look at what's bad and work through that. So it's
Absolutely.
interesting. It got
It
me
is
thinking.
interesting. Yeah, that's very interesting how it cross pollinates. So let's get to the crux of exactly what you do as a mindfulness ninja. And I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third grade students. One of the kids looks up career day and says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer them?
I teach people when they're feeling bad how to not run away, but fix the feeling. We're going to paint it, we're going to make it so we can see all of it. And when we see the feeling, then it turns happy again.
So when you were in the 3rd grade, what was your dream? What'd you want to be when you grew up?
I knew at that time that I wanted to be a therapist or an actress, but actresses have to take off their clothes. This is my thinking in elementary. Actresses have to take off their clothes, and I'm not doing that. So clearly, I'm going to be a therapist.
Yeah.
Now I'm both. I like to act in community theater. It's a wonderful thing. But when I was in my late teens and it's time to pick a major for college, I remembered that I thought I was going to be a therapist. And I'm like, get close to feelings uncomfortable. No, like, why? And so I'm like, clearly that's not going to happen. And years later, I spent years in existential crisis trying to find the answer that God already gave me. Right? What do I do? What means something to me? And feelings, of course, were uncomfortable. But as I was growing, I've always been a grower. And as I was growing and exploring, I don't even know how it happened, but there was a day when it hit me, and it was like a revelation. Oh, I'm going to be a therapist. And I went back to school.
Right on. So let's go back into your childhood. Where were you born and raised, and how did these seeds get in you to want to act and to want to get into therapy?
Well, I was born and raised in suburbs of Baltimore, East Coast, and I honestly don't know. To me, I don't have a good, satisfying, logical answer. And the funny thing is, I was not always super into spirituality and stuff like that. I wouldn't speak that way. I would use words like intuition, but it's just things that I knew. I was in elementary school being so happy that we're doing a play. And then I remember being sorely disappointed to find out that middle school was coming and they did not have a drama team. And I was going to have to wait until high school to do theater. Like it was just like in my bones, right? My mother was a musician. She's a classical pianist, amazing. And that was a wonderful gift to teach me. But my heart lies with theater. And the psychology, I think it's just something in the way I think. I think I was gifted some things that was going to facilitate this, but I didn't know. It's just, again, it was just handed to me, an intuitive thing that I denied and then got back to. And to the point where my parents had 6 kids, and my dad used to call me his little psychologist. I actually, maybe you could call that seed, but I feel like that came later, like middle school, when he would be like, just because the way I thought and responded to things seemed to be different from my 5 siblings. So,
So who's been a hero for you in your life?
oh man, you ask great questions. I got to tell you.
Good.
Yeah, you don't have any questions that I can give you like an easy, quick answer to. So
We'll get there.
I will get there. I'm going to start a circuitous route. So therapists, let me say good therapists. Sorry, not sorry. Good therapists think of things in terms of core beliefs, not our surface thoughts, but what's our core belief that drives us. That's what really drives us. It's subconscious, although it does bubble to the consciousness. So in my master's program, my clinical mentor, I was in a class of hers, and I raised my hand. Yeah, I'll go ahead and do this exercise where you're going to ask about an early memory, and you're going to and ask me something. And so she asked essentially the same kind of question. It wasn't a hero, but it was like, who did you look up to, or who was there for you? And I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking, well, I'm about to stump her. And I say, because I couldn't find anyone, and I said there was no one. And I'm thinking I stumped her because she's expecting an answer, but she says, so you learned from an early age to be self-reliant. Oh, tears. It all just came up. I'm like, oh my God. That was super emotional.
Yeah.
So at a really young age, that was hard. But at an older age, I came to appreciate how powerful my father's influence on me was. He was not, as a person, he was plenty flawed, and there were issues growing up and some dysfunction in that house. But he was always a man that tried to live by his principles. And because of that, he grew his whole life. So even though I saw his anger and his flaws and his inability to deal with conflict and like the places where he hadn't grown yet, I got to watch over his lifespan him grow and grow. And seeing someone live a truly authentic life meant more than him being a perfect parent. And I want all the parents with parent guilt out there to hear that. That meant a
Yeah.
lot to me because I was paying attention.
Yeah, that's interesting. There was somebody I was listening to in an interview that said the same thing. Man, it's gonna come to me, but they were just talking about people being authentic and how they can see if somebody's just building a facade. But that's very true. It's very that's such a good, noble way of living your life. Um, let me ask you this: if you could meet anybody alive on the earth right now, who would it be?
Uh, oh, oh my God. My husband? I don't have conventional answers. My
That's
brain
fine.
is different.
That's good.
You know what? I mean, I would either meet him and be with him, which I get to do all the time, yay, or I might be like you and meet anybody. Um, as a therapist, one of the great joys of my life is that people that are out in the world in whatever way they are, whatever way they need to pull up a mask to function, to seem normal-ish, um, they have a tendency to feel really comfortable with me, a lot of people. And so I get to see people in their authentic state, in their raw state, as much as they're able to based on what they can allow. So in a way, I get to have these authentic conversations, helping people go to the deep stuff and to explore and grow. And so I suppose I do that all the time, because I'm just interested in people, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah, I dig it. No, I get it. Let's get to kind of how the inner workings of you work. What is it that motivates you? Every day we get up, we have motivators that pull us through a day. What is it for you?
When I started, so the easy, simple answer, here's what I can give you: a simple, easy answer. I want to help people, I want the world to be better. What really gets me going is, I've gotten better and better at what I do. And once I got into private practice in 2018, all these things that I've been doing, years of meditation practice, years of trauma practice, understanding people more deeply, all this stuff, oh, my spiritual work, all of it kind of fell into place. It synthesized and created this thing that I call therapeutic mindfulness, which I teach. And that's what I write about in my book. Ever since I started teaching that, there's a much higher rate of people that stop needing me. And when a therapist works herself out of a job or himself out of a job, that's good stuff. That motivates me. That makes me super excited. So every time it's like, you know what? We're good. I worked through the main stuff. I have the tools to move on my own. And thank you. I'm just like, I'm over the moon. I come down, I bounce down the stairs to my husband. I'm like, guess what? Someone just graduated. Just so happy.
That's
So that
excellent.
moves me. And keep in mind, I haven't fixed everything for them, but the process that I teach is something they can do in between sessions or without me. And when someone doesn't need me, that's gold right there. Emotional gold.
Sure. So in your life, of all the things that you've gone through, we gain wisdom. Let's say you have a dream tonight. You run into the 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could give that younger version of you a piece of advice based on the wisdom you've gained in your life to this point. What would you tell your younger version?
Listen to your guidance. I know you're not going to learn it for 5 years because you're a stubborn ass and you think you know shit. Excuse, am I allowed to say this stuff?
Yeah, you can say whatever you
Because
want.
you're stubborn, you think you know things, and you're pretty smart, but your wisdom is smarter. The guidance from your higher self is smarter, and just follow that. That's it. Because she knows what she needs to do. She's just not going to listen for another 5 years.
So what's been one of the best client success stories you've ever witnessed and been a part of?
Oh gosh. Whew. I'm trying to pick. I'm trying to pick.
Yeah, right. I bet
Um,
there's a
I'm like,
vast.
should I do a specific one or should I do a theme? I
You could
mean,
theme it if you want.
right. There's a specific one is a 20-year-old lady who comes to me and she's got really super heavy grief. Her story, I feel like I can share, on very loose terms this story because she's already allowed it to be printed in my book and details are changed and all that. But basically she comes to me because a grandparent died and years before that someone else had died. And she's young, she's working, and she just doesn't, she's never learned how to deal with feelings. So it's not super big, not dysfunctional, but she's starting to cry. She cries every day, sometime during the way. It's she's not motivated in life and is becoming a depression because she just has never learned how. And she's got 6 EAP sessions. And so I teach her mindfulness. First thing, therapeutic mindfulness, that version. First thing in between, she practices. And the grief is like, I teach it to her and we go through. And the grief is like this huge boulder that's weighing on her and it's heavy. And so every 2 weeks she comes to me and we work it a little bit more. And then by the third time I see her, she's like, the boulder is really, when it comes up, I do that now. I do the mindfulness and it's really just a pebble now. And we can talk about some other things. And then EAP was over and she was done. Like, that's a wonderful thing, is just, I taught her a skill that she needed. She didn't have all the super heavy stuff, but, like in terms of, rape and beatings and all the horrible lifelong stuff. But she had heavy, heavy feelings, huge grief that was absolutely stopping her from living well. And all she needed was that tool. But the theme one that I would like to share, and this story encapsulates many people that I've seen, many women and some men, is when they're in abusive relationships. This is probably something that frustrates a lot of people. When you can see it's abusive, you're like, we need to, like, you need to leave, you need to stand up for yourself, you need to do X, Y, Z. And then they go back. Why do they go back? And an Einstein quote really fits here for me because it explains everything. You can't solve a problem at the level of consciousness you were at when you created it. They're attracted to that relationship. There's something that has to happen there, and they can't get past that until they evolve emotionally. And so this one is deeper work. What I found is abusive relationships, when the person is on the receiving on the end where they're being controlled more and abused more, tends to go directly to low self-esteem. And low self-esteem is a hard thing to budge. However, doing really deep work, I do EMDR as well, which is a trauma modality. So my favorite 2 things are therapeutic mindfulness and EMDR. And I'll use a lot of those and do a lot of childhood work. And as they work through the emotional wounds of the childhood, and they start to see themselves as being worthy of standing up, and then the relationships that pull them back, they simply lose their appeal. The person does all the guilt jabs and they're like, and it just doesn't hit, and then when they're lonely, they can handle it, and we're working through that, and the loneliness does not seem worse than going back to the abuse. So self-esteem, healing that's one thing that I've seen again and again with a lot of clients.
So it's kind of the mindfulness ninja, the gatekeeper of helping people out all the time. Let's get to the core of who you are. Everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, clients, colleagues. You're in control, though. You run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
Me personally,
Yeah.
oh gosh. See, you have all these questions that take a lot of thought. I'm like, how do I answer that? Can I have half an hour and we pause? I come back.
Yeah, we'll pause.
All
We'll
right.
come back.
My perception of who I am, um, I'm, there's personality stuff. I'm feisty, I'm goofy, I'm opinionated, I'm strong, I'm powerful, I'm loving. And at the core, I am I'm spirit. I am someone that, because of listening to the guidance, I've become open to channeling the gifts, which has opened up my perception to be more loving, open up my perception to see things in a different way. And so there's my personality, which is a lot of fun, but then there is my purpose, my soul's purpose as given to me, and that's just to heal myself and heal others. And that encapsulates, I think, a lot of who I am, especially the goofy part. We're not hitting the goofy as much this time, but it's major.
I love it. That keeps everything young and fresh for sure. I remember in college, one of my poetry classes, we went around and what was the question? It was like, who are you, or what do you want to be when you grow up, or what do you want to do? And her whole answer was, I don't want to grow up. That's the last thing I want to do. I want to stay young, which is good. It's a good thing to attain to for sure.
The other day, my daughter was telling me I'm weird. That's one of our things at our house, is we're all weird. And I'm like, I'm weird. Am I weird? And she's like, yeah. She said, you're so weird, people are jealous. I
That's
just
great.
died.
That could be a quote. That could be a t-shirt, you never know.
The
So
weird people are jealous.
that's it.
Yeah.
Totally. So Ruth, if anyone wants to hire you, learn more about you, partake in anything revolving around your world, where can they go?
So I think the process I'm talking about that where people can do some healing on their own, that is the most important word I want to get out there. I do speaking, I do workshops, and that's on ruthfearnow.com. You can contact me for that. My last name, Fearnow, is spelled like it sounds, Fearnow. So ruthfearnow.com. Or if you just want to check out the work and do some of that on your own, it's on Amazon, Therapeutic Mindfulness. Got it in hardback, paperback, audiobook coming soon. And then if you want to check out my Facebook and see if I'm going to be doing any events or if I have any announcements, then that is facebook.com/calm to happy, CALMTOHAPPY.
Excellent. Ruth, this has been great. Thank you for opening up. Thanks for your story. Best of luck with everything.
Thank you, and good luck with your podcast and getting that out there.
Thank you.
I love it.
Take it easy.